Mitch Holder. I'm glad to be here at Wildwood Guitars. And the guitar I'm playing here, this is called an ES-357, which probably a lot of you say, what is that? And it's got a nickname. I co-designed this with Gibson in early 80s. And one of my buddies who got one of the few production models they made, he nicknamed it the ES-Mitch, and that kind of has stuck all these years. It was 28 years ago, hard for me to believe. Any rate, there was a pretty important reason to me that they did this at the time, because it goes back to the late 70s, early 80s, when music was changing, technology was changing, digital technology was just starting to rear its head. And it started out in a couple of synthesizers. The one I remember the most that changed things was the Prophet 5. And that was one of the first digital synths that came on the market. And of course, the keyboard guys, I'm a studio player, and the studio guys always got the newest things. We're all looking for the latest thing to be ahead of the curve and all of that. And when the keyboards got those instruments, and we went into the booth to hear the playbacks, and this is at a time when there were multiple guitars on sessions. That's not the case so much anymore. Usually you're overdubbing or maybe playing with a rhythm section, but there were 2 guitars, 3 guitars, 4 guitars at that time. And we would go in the booth listening to the playbacks. We were playing 335s and no guitars. There's no guitars on the playback. We're going, what is going on here? And what was going on were the digital synths, each instrument's in a frequency. If you go in the orchestra, you got a piccolos up here, you got a bass trombones down here, basses are down here. Every instrument has its frequency. Guitar's middle frequency. The whole guitar, you look at the keyboard, piano keyboard, it's right smack in the center. Well, so was the Prophet 5, was smack in the center, exactly where the 335 was. So we were getting obliterated. And then there was a scramble to find, what are we going to do? What wound up happening was that we found that the Strat, Fender Strat, with the 3rd pickup in the middle, was enough to go into the upper middle range and cut through on the playbacks. So everybody was out getting their Strats. And I'm an old Gibson guy. I was a Gibson guy when I was a kid, middle age, old age, you know, I'm a Gibson guy. The 335, I grew up, I bought I should have kept it. Oh well, dumb me. How many stories I got? I got a 61 cherry red dot neck 335, was my second Gibson. And I love the style right off the bat. I love the fact that it was thin. It was like a hollow body. I started on hollow bodies. And even when I was a kid, I didn't like that they were so big and your arms up like this. So boy, when I played that 335, I thought, this is perfect. So I wanted to continue that tradition, and I called Gibson up and I said, you need a 3rd pickup on the 335. And they said to me, what are you talking about? And I told them what I just described, and they said, no, we're not interested because we're back ordered building 335s. We can't take that on. I said, would you build me one? They said, sure. So I had an ES-5 at the time. If you don't know what that is, it's a 3 pickup, big hollow body. It's 17 inches, same size as an L5 or an ES-350, and had 3 P90 pickups. I got intrigued. I looked in an old Gibson book. I saw a picture of one. Wanted to have one to hear what it sounded like with 3 pickups. Took me about, at the time, it's early 70s, about 4 years to even find one. I finally found one. And I went, boy, this has got some amazing sounds in it. Had 3 volumes and a tone. So it was like a mixing setup. But if you wanted, say, the front and back pickup, you had to turn those up, turn the middle one down. You're constantly scrambling with volume controls. That part I didn't like, because in the studio, if I wanted to change a sound midstream, change the pickup, there was no easy way to do it. It was taking too much time. So when we were going to do this, I said I'd like an ES type of guitar, like a 335, 355, with 3 P90s, with a control set up like an ES-5, 3 volumes and a tone. But I said, I said to them, I said, I got to have switching. You got to be able to, I got to be able to switch instantaneously. They said, okay, we'll work on it. So I didn't hear anything. This is about 1980, I think, 1980, 1981. I was busy playing, and I totally forgot about it. Took almost 3 years. I got a phone call. So this is Gibson. Oh yeah, how you guys doing? Yeah, we got your guitar ready. I was like, what guitar? What are you talking about? They said, you know, the 3 pickup with, and I wanted no F-holes because I was having feedback problems. They said, fine. You know, the no F-hole 3P90 ES. I said, oh yeah. So anyway, so they sent it to me, and I opened the case and I plugged it in, and I played the guitar with a middle pickup sound. Then I flipped out because it didn't sound exactly like a Strat. It sounded like my favorite combination, and I'll tell you how it all works in a second, but this. It's the front pickup, it's the neck pickup, and the middle pickup, and it gets this really fat Strat sound. And of course, I was playing Strats too, because we had to have Strats. I couldn't get that sound on the Strat, but I could get it on here. And there were a lot of people that I were working with liked that sound. What's that sound? So I was using that a lot. It was so expressive, and it also sounds, for some reason, I still don't know, sounds like there's a little compression on it. Sounds like there's a little bit of a compressor, and it's got a really nice sound to it. So anyway, I was using it with the 3P90s, and along the way, I was getting some comments from the engineers, you know, Mitch, that guitar, it's a great sound, but I'm getting a lot of noise. And of course, it was from the 3P90s, and I decided to experiment. So the first thing I did at the time, I put in the combination they were using on the Les Paul standards and customs and so forth. There was a 490, which was a stock humbucker, and a 498, which had a little bit more output, so you could match the volumes going from pickup to pickup. That was the first combination I tried. And then the guy I had do it, he suggested that we take one of the P90s that we were taking out and put it behind the middle pickup as a dummy coil to cancel the hum of the middle pickup. And I said, is that going to change the sound? He said, no, it shouldn't. It should be, but let's do it. So we did that. And boy, it worked great, And I used that for quite a while. And what I noticed, and I know a lot of you players who have played triple pickup, Les Paul customs in the past, thing I hear all the time, and myself included, on this, with those pickups, there's nowhere to pick. It's real hard to find a spot. And I move around. When I'm looking for certain sounds, I'm moving around a lot. And it was hard. So a few years ago, Gibson came out with the Burstbuckers. So I was looking at those, and not the pros and not the potted ones, but the unpotted Burstbucker 1, 2, and 3. I was intrigued with that, with the different ranges of power. So I thought the 1 is probably like a 490, and the 2 is probably like a 498. Let's try a 2 in the front and a 3 in the back. So possibly I can screw the pickups down. So that's what we did, and I tested it out, and going from pickup to pickup, the balance was completely the same. It stayed the same, and I don't know if you can see this, but if you can look at, I've got the front back pickup are down quite a ways. In fact, the neck pickup is almost down flat, okay? So the fact that it's a little higher output enabled us to lower the pickup down and keep the volume balance the same, and I was a happy camper because the middle one was always at the right height. It's pretty, you could see it's pretty far down, so there's no problem. I can pick anywhere I want. So works like a charm, gets somewhat of a Strat sound, and let me go through that now. I'll go through some of the sounds that this guitar will get. And let me explain the switching first and the controls. Let's do the controls first. So looks like a stock Gibson. These 3 are volume controls. This is the neck pickup volume control. This is the bridge pickup volume control. I'm sorry, this is the middle pickup volume control. This is the bridge pickup. So this is pretty much stock, okay? This is a master tone. All right. Now the two switches. We got a second metal little mini switch. When it's in the up position, this is standard 2-pickup Gibson. You got the neck pickup, you got the bridge pickup, you got the front and the back, okay? In this position now, when I flip the switch to the middle position, it adds the middle position to those combinations. So in this position, now we've added the middle one to the neck. So we got the neck and middle. That was the sound I just played a few minutes ago. When this switch is in the middle, all three are on, which I found to be really useful. Didn't find that out because on a Strat, you can't get through all three at one time. And I was a little leery about, you hear, especially with overdrive, who uses an overdrive with more than one pickup at a time? No one I know. I wasn't even thinking about it. But for rhythm, all three pickups gets a really unique, powerful sound. Then with this switch in the down position, we've got the middle pickup and the bridge pickup. So that's those three combinations. Now in whatever configuration this is in, when this switch goes down, it's just the middle position. And that for rhythm I found, and lead, I found to be really, really useful. And you can do it on a Strat, but this is a P90. It gets a different sound. The only guitars that Gibson ever had a middle pickup like this was the ES5, the ES-225, which was in the 50s, and the 330. The original 330 just had one. It was a replacement for the 225, and it had just one middle pickup. And what I really learned about it, I got a call for a jingle one time, and they said, we need T-Bone Walker. I said, okay, great. So I listened. I pulled out my T-Bone Walker set, box set, and I'm listening to them. And I got this guitar out. I had the ES5 out too. And I'm looking for what pickups he using. All three? No. Two. What's he using? Finally, I said, what about just the middle? Put on just the middle. Blammo. There, I'm T-Bone. So I went into the date, turned off the front and the rear, played the middle pickup for the whole date. Great. That sounded perfect. So, and another point of that is being a session player. You hear a lot of things about session players in the past, and you got to read like a fiend, and yeah, you do. But the main thing is the sound. To me, what I've learned being a session player, you can go in and play the greatest lick mankind's ever heard. And if it doesn't sound right, it's meaningless. So what I've found more times than others, and I've heard, well, you got to sound like T-Bone. The next day, you got to sound like Eddie Van Halen. The next day, we need you to sound like B.B. King. That's great because all I need to play is one note. Now B.B. King, But the thing is, if you play that lick, a guy's lick, and it doesn't sound right, it's not believable. Okay? If you play a generic blues lick what's a generic blues lick? How about which BB was the originator of that, by the way. And everybody knows that lick. But if you play with the wrong sound, that's not saying anything. Okay? Now, if I put the middle one, that should be better, I would think. And it is, right? If I put the back two, that should work. Yeah, that works. All three fattens it up. So I was interested in sonically being able to tread through these sounds because it's just a minuscule adjustment will make a huge difference in what you're projecting. And it'll also, it's interesting how this works. I discovered this all seat of the pants, just playing. If you get the sound right or believable and you play the lick, the lick will translate from you because you're hearing it in that sonic shape, and it's going to make you play differently. You might play instead of just a, you might, it'll suggest little different texture. I was using my pick and fingers a little bit and snapping a little bit. It'll tell you how to play it and how it should sound. If you have the wrong sound, let's see if I go here, do the same thing. Hasn't got the snap, you know. Diff swap, I might play differently. That might work. So it's telling me to play a little differently to get the best I can out of this sound. Whether it's what I'm going for or not, that's another question. What I'm going for is going to be what's going to work in the track. And that's something you have to be very subjective about what you're going to play, because you can't be thinking about, well, what would I play if it were me? It's not you. It's who you're working for. And my whole MO about it has been, I want to play it. If they could play it, I want to make it sound like them if they could play it. So you got to be part psychologist and get into their frame of reference and see what's going to work.